locked.
Hello there, and welcome back to another ClueCon Weekly. I'm delighted to have as our guest this week, Daniel-Constantin Mierla from the Kamailio project. How are you today, Daniel?
All good, David. Thank you for inviting me for another ClueCon Weekly. Doing well, as everyone being a bit precautious around here, but otherwise I cannot complain.
Good. I'm pleased about that.
Hope everything goes fine also for you and SignalWire team.
Thank you, Daniel. Yes, we're all good, thank you. And as you know from the fact that you know us, and the SignalWire and the Free Switch people are all remote workers anyway. We're kind of distributed around the place, and so the change in circumstances for some has not been a great change for us. We've kind of carried on doing what we did, but we're very pleased to have you along. You're a veteran speaker at ClueCon and various other open source events, including, of course, your own event, Kamailio World, which would have taken place in late April this year, wouldn't it? But sadly, in common with a lot of other events, had to be called off.
Yeah, it was supposed to be end of April this year, but it was the peak of the pandemic, more or less, and no major events were allowed to happen in Germany and actually across most of the world at that time, as we had over 150, around 170 people. That kind of size was banned by the authorities. And we hope to be able to organize it next year, trying to celebrate 20 years of Kamailio development. That's going to be in 2021. So first line of code was committed in 2001. Quite long way, but it's a good reason to party and hope we can solve this pandemic, or the researchers in the medicine and so on will succeed to help every one of us to return back to our normal lives.
Yes, a degree of return to normality would be great. Many congratulations, by the way, on your upcoming 20th anniversary for the project. That's great news, and as you say, a very valid reason to get back together. And actually, you just reminded me, I should mention to viewers that ClueCon Deconstructed, that's the online version of ClueCon, is going to be online August the 4th through to the 6th, and you can find more details on ClueCon.com. But as Daniel was just saying, we're looking forward to getting back to live events and hope that Kamailio World in Berlin will be one of those in the new year. That's great. So Daniel, tell us. Sorry, go ahead.
I wanted to say that I will be also at the ClueCon Deconstructed as well. Hopefully, we'll be able to deliver 2 sessions, a little bit of Kamailio training, like getting started with Kamailio. Maybe not kind of training, but more like a session, 1 hour, a bit more technical, and a usual presentation. So see everyone there. Reserve the days and see you online.
Yeah, we're very grateful to have your participation on that, Daniel. We'll look forward to that. And actually, one other thing to mention, and that is every Friday at 10 a.m. Central Time, so that's US Central Time, we're actually online on cluecon.cantina.video. I think that's right. Yeah, cluecon.cantina.video. And if you get onto the lobby there, then you can find a room called ClueCon Warm Up, and that's where we gather to talk about what might be going on in a Deconstructed. So yeah, we've got look forward to the Kamailio workshop. Great news. Now, I believe you've got a little bit of a presentation for us, Daniel, about what's been going on in the Kamailio project. And so if I flick over to screen share, and we'll put you at the top of the screen here, like that. Please do tell us what you've prepared for us.
Okay, so I tried to make a summary, a short summary, actually, of what happens around the Kamailio project in the last several months.
Okay, sounds good.
Just for the people watching the recording and they are first hearing about Kamailio, or they're not sure what it is. Practically, it's not a telephony engine like some of people out there are used to look at FreeSwitch or Asterix. It's a SIP packet router dispatching SIP messages left and right, to put it in a simple way, either between phones or between phones and gateways or media servers, or between gateways for an interconnect provider. The main target could be here for increasing the capacity of your maybe transcoding or termination. We also support registration, authentication, security, firewalling for SIP packets. So everything that falls into high capacity SIP packet processing could eventually be achieved, and in most of the cases, it's what Kamailio can do. When it comes to media processing, like audio conferencing, IVRs, also video conferences, voicemail, then applications such as FreeSwitch, Asterix, or SIP Express Media Server, SAMS, just to enumerate a few from the open source space, have to be used. So this just for people hearing first for Kamailio. Now I'm going to list through the list of new features we added lately in Kamailio. As we discussed a little bit before, practically we prepare for the 20th anniversary of the project. That means a lot of years of development. So we have quite a lot of features from this perspective. So what's here is just what we added in the several last months. But you, as a watcher, you can check our website for the full list of supported features. And of course, I've been participating to many ClueCons, Asticons, or Kamailio, and typically I give from time to time updates about what's new. So searching on YouTube about Kamailio presentations, you can learn more for what it can do and how it can do it, and how you can integrate it with other VoIP platforms. Now, here I try to list the modules that we added in the last year from the perspective of the design. Just to clarify, Kamailio has a core of the application where we try to have the common code for parsing SIP packets, for dealing with the transport layer, TCP, UDP, TCP, and everything as business-oriented feature. It's more into a module. Could be a single module, or could be many modules for the same type of feature, like least cause routing, load balancing. These are modules. And what we added later there, practically, we have a new module to keep our old Lua API compatibility, because we added a new layer that allows execution of scripts written in other programming languages, such as Lua, Python, Ruby. Lua, it's an old one that we supported probably like 10 years now, and we use it for inline execution. I will show it quickly what that meant. But because it was an increase in popularity and higher demand to integrate with systems out there that are newly developed, like NoSQLs or API servers, our native scripting language kind of gets to a little bit of a limitation, being written from scratch, designed it back in 2001. When no other scripting language out there was meeting our requirements for performance. So Python was a little bit slow. Perl, not even now, it's suitable for parallel processing and recurrent execution of the same code.
Right.
So yeah, we wrote our own scripting language, but the world has changed in the past 20 years, just to use this round number. And new developers are coming. They are already familiar with well-established scripting languages like Python and JavaScript, and it's easier for them to start building the routing logic, because this is the role of Kamailio config file. It has, of course, some parameters to set what are the socket to listen on, other like how many processes, worker processors to start. But then for each seed message, it's executing a route block, how we name it in our native scripting language, and that's kind of a functional scripting language. And newcomers find it easier if they can do that just in their preferred scripting language. So then even the second extension here, Chemix, comes to enhance that capability of Kamailio. Chemix stands for Kamailio Embedded Interpreter Interface, which allowed us to have this routing logic in external scripting languages such as Lua, Python. But again, to be even more clear from that perspective, Kamailio is the interpreter, so it's not external execution. I refer as external scripting languages because we don't develop that scripting language inside Kamailio as we do with the native scripting language. So it's a standalone project with many other companies writing extensions for them, for Lua, Python, and so on.
Yes, in fact,
so
just not so long ago, I noticed that Tori Searle, one of the community members, was getting to grips with Chemi and doing something with it.
Yeah, actually, it's very, very active these days. He settled on Python because it's using Python for other application inside its company, and that makes it easier for the entire ops and devs teams to use the same language. Before, like the VoIP team had to learn our native scripting language and then explain eventually to the ops team when it's a problem or they need to do some adjustment. So yeah, Tori, it's indeed very active. I'll have some slides a little bit more because Chemix, it's quite popular these days, and it's a lot of question about it. First, to finish with the list of these new features, we focused a little bit also on this next generation emergency services, and probably the situation out there shows more than ever it's a good time to look at how we can improve this, finding the location of the people, alerting if it's like a pandemic source on that area, and also in case of accidents, get a bit more accurate location coordinates. So this lost module comes in that direction. Short parenthesis here, actually the last Kamailio Award, which didn't happen, was supposed to have like a group of presentation related to this next generation emergency services, because yeah, it's quite some interest also from government authorities and also from the commercial vendors to move to something better, suitable for current devices like smartphones, tablets, and so on. I mentioned before going to the next one that Kamailio is not really involved in media processing, but actually we got a new contribution recently from an North American developer that gives Kamailio the capability of playing media streams during a call, but only for basic purposes. Think about, you call someone, that user is not registered with a PBX or with a SIP server, and to have it in a nice way, typically we forward the call to asterisk free switch, where you play this, the user is not available, please call later, just instead of just replying with a SIP signaling reply code, giving a busy tone. And yeah, this comes to
sort of in-service messages, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Some people prefer it to have like a single installation, typically when you don't really run another application for these very basic needs, because putting another application, we have to take in consideration maintenance, like upgrading the hardware, upgrading the software kernel and so on, which requires time, and it's adding to the overhead of the ops. So this is new. I haven't really played myself. It's more like alpha stage, but it was somehow quite well accepted when it was announced. Otherwise, our focus is still on signaling from that perspective. On security, we have a new module, sec filter, that tries to facilitate making it easier to manage the security rules by having them in database, not in the scripting language, because the database can be easily updated via web interface, and then Kamailio can reload the records from that table. So you can have rules, reject, accept traffic based on different policies, and these policies are in the database now. Prometheus started to be also popular out there for gathering statistics, metrics from the application, aggregating them, and then using other applications such as Grafana to build charts and monitor the traffic. Another module have there. Now, those that have a devel note next to it are practically not in a stable version. They were added in current development version and supposed to be part of the next major version of Kamailio. We have some connectors to Kafka, which is an Apache project suitable for scalability, distribution of information across the nodes, and MQTT, which is a message bus system, very popular in IoT actually this time, because they have a little overhead in terms of data size that is sent over the network. Maybe for America, the next one is more interesting. A new module named SecSIP ID, stands for Secure SIP or Telephony Identity, coming from the ITF, and also known as Steer Shaken extension for SIP, trying to provide the means of detecting caller ID, spoofing, and fight this robocalling, which is a big problem in USA, not really that big in Europe, at least West Europe, where I'm located, because of stricter regulation in that way. But US, it's a well-known, let's say, issue, this robocalling, annoying calling that actually harm people, but not willing to keep their phone open to get valid calls, because they are flooded by all this.
Yes, and just as a little side comment, the UK is plagued by that as well. Even though there is a telephony preference service where you can register not to receive these calls, I don't know whether they work around it or just disobey it, but there's a lot of robocalls in the UK. Okay, yeah. And the last in my list here, it's a module that also comes to help on managing the headers using variables. Kamailio as a SIP packet router, it's used a lot on normalizing headers, removing unnecessary headers, or inserting new headers. And the usual approach was with text-like operations, SIP being a text protocol. But this new module comes to help and make it easier by using our config file variables. So you can load variables or the values from database or from an API server, and Kamailio automatically will use them to create new headers or update existing ones. Sounds good. So these are practically like new extensions. Of course, there was a lot of work on existing extensions on scalability, like vertical scalability or horizontal scalability. Dispatcher, the load balancer module, got
quite a lot of features, like they are not listed here, all of them. I can say from my heart right now, like latency-based routing. So for each of our gateways that we keep in the dispatcher, we monitor them, we keep alive, and if one is slower in replying, gets lower priority, who is fast gets higher priority. So from a quality of service that could help during the call. Management of this.
Sorry, Daniel, I was just going to jump in and say that that's a great addition to the load balancing capability to select by latency, because I know that's one of the very, very popular uses of Kamailio is as a load balancer using its dispatcher module.
Yeah, I think it's probably one of the top modules used there. At least by myself, it's very rare not having a load balancer. Even if it's like a main SIB router, you still need a load balancer going to your media server and so on. Other area of work very intensive these days, it's about the extension for 5G voice over LTE, or also known as IMS extensions. Probably we have like maybe 15 to 20 modules related to this kind of deployment, from diameter client server extension to all these PCRFs or SCFS nodes that are specific to IMS 5G.
Okay.
Our native scripting language also, it's developed, so it's not gonna go away. It's just another alternative to Lua Python. So we have many new config variables, new functions, new transformation, which are sort of specific functions for the variables. So it's a lot of work there. It's just who wants to use something else, it has the option now. RTP engine, which is typically used or known for being used for NAT traversal, relaying RTP packets for a NATed call, get a couple of fancy capabilities out there in media processing. So it's a standalone application, but it's controlled by Kamailio, this RTP engine. And you can do some transcoding these days. You can play media, stop playing media during a call. So this is also something to look at if you haven't checked it lately. It's quite rich in features. Next, we also focused a little bit more on deployments using container-based infrastructure like Dockers or Kubernetes. Practically there, you know the properties of the system just before starting it, like IP addresses and firewall ports and so on. So it's easier in that case to rely on environment variables or command line parameters for tuning Kamailio behavior instead of hard coding them in a text file or config file, because it's harder to replace if you discover, oh, it's a different IP now or a different port range. You just change the command line parameters from your start script, and that's it, instead of editing the config file. More function exported to this embedded interpreter interface for external scripting languages. And we are developing a new CLI tool. The old one, the existing one, it's from the beginning of the project, written in shell, but now as we need more validation, people work more with structured documents like JSON and so on, we decided to use Python to build a new and hopefully a better, fancy one.
Okay, understood.
For those that have older VoIP platforms, including Kamailio, but could be also an old FreeSwitch or Asterix, I want to make here a short note about a different project. So it's developed by Asipto, my company, and it's actually used for the SecSip ID, the still shaken module in Kamailio. But besides offering a library, a C library to be able to process the still shaken requirements, It also offers like a standalone application, which is practically like an API server to do this stir-shaken type of processing. And it's then easy to use, like even very old Kamailio as a HTTP client module, and you do an HTTP query to this standalone application telling, hey, Daniel is calling David. Of course, for telephony will be some phone numbers. Please sign this call, and you get the reply in the HTTP as a response of the HTTP query. You add it as a header and you send it over. So it's trying not to put a pressure if the FCC or the American regulation authority is forcing it to do upgrade, because we know we have thousands of connections going to our server. Changing to a newer version could create a lot of work, testing, preparing infrastructure. So even for all the systems, you can enable it by using this project. It's open source, it's on GitHub, check it, and of course contribute if you want to extend it. I choose, because I'm the developer of this project, to use Go, because Go has its in the core libraries, all these functions required for encryption, decryption, as well as HTTP capabilities, because sometimes you need to download the certificate of the sender, the provider, the one that signed the incoming call, to check it's a valid signature. So it's out there. Check it. Let me know if you have questions, and I will be happy to see contribution if you are interested in. Few words about this Kamailio embedded interface, because as I said, we have new people quite interested in it, and probably who is watching might benefit of a few more details. This is how we have it before. Practically, we supported to execute scripts in other languages in Kamailio since 2010 or so, but it was what we refer to it as inline execution. So you could load a script via specific module, like here I have the example with Lua and the app Lua. It's the module in Kamailio. We give the path to the script. Then we have our native scripting language, and you notice here the request route. It's practically what's executed for an incoming request. And after authentication or what other processing someone wanted to do, you could call a function from the script, from this file, myscript.lua, which is at the top. Lua run and the name of the functions. However, that was a little bit harder to integrate. You had two files and you couldn't watch easily what's one file and what's in another file. So what we tried to do was to replace these routing blocks, our functions for from config for routing C packets, to be all in these external scripting languages like Lua, Python. They are not affected the core parameters and loading the modules, this extension, and setting the parameters for the modules. Everything else can be written in a well-established scripting language. Of course, now we support Lua, Python 2 and Python 3, JavaScript, the Ruby, and Squirrel language. I haven't listed here because it's not that famous and it's more for teaching purposes.
But quite a selection there, Daniel.
Yeah, we try to see what's the interest from the community. I actually use only Lua. Ruby, it was a request during the last Kamailio World, and I said, okay, I can write it as, because it's about embedding the interpreter in Lua, in Kamailio, which is writing C code, but the interpreter is practically a C library that we link to a Kamailio module. So I could do that, and I said to the guy, hey, if you want to test it, I can write the Kamailio module and you report, and I can fix it. And it was, again, a community collaboration. It's not like I use all these interpreters. Even you see I am the author of them. I did it because it was a demand from community and someone helped it to integrate either also C code or also only testing.
Great
Here
stuff.
is the difference.
The power of community, Daniel.
Yeah, I'm actually happy that we succeeded to create a very vibrant and very active community, also user, but also developers. So many companies contribute code to Kamailio, which helped during this pandemic times where maybe one person is a little bit more busy on the family side during the day, and other tasks, not only work, have surfaced it this last few months. So it was a very good balance to have people across the world and people active on both communities, development and users.
Yeah, I'm pleased to hear that.
This scripting language, I wanted just to show side by side native scripting language on the left side and what's in the equivalent of the Lua, this Kemi scripting framework in Kamailio, with example of using Lua scripting. So practically the left side, it's script language designed and written from scratch by us, and the right side, it's Lua. What's practically the difference of writing a normal Lua script? It's you get this KSR, the KSR object in Lua, and then you can see here KSR TM tcheck trans, which says use this tcheck trans from the TM module of Kamailio because of the KSR root object. KSR stands actually for Kamailio C router. It's what we export to each scripting language. And then you can see it's kind of one-by-one relation. On the left side, you have if tcheck trans. On the right side, you have a little bit more like object-oriented approach. KSR, the object we export. TM, the module exporting the function tcheck trans. And in our native scripting language, we also had like subroutes or sort of a functions. Now, if you use Lua or Python, you just have to define a function, how it should be done in Lua. And of course, inside it, you can use KSR exports by Kamailio. So it's even translation from an existing native scripting language to the new Kemi framework using another scripting language. It's kind of easy. We try to keep it one-by-one relation. However, then in the Lua script, you can import libraries developed by another company or developed by in-house, not exported by Kamailio, to connect to, I don't know, CouchDB, which we don't have a connector, or connect to some new system that shows up on the market tomorrow. And they offer from the vendor of that system Python or Lua libraries. It's not dependent of Kamailio anymore to extend it. Here, I just want to give the link to a more complex or complete config file script written in Lua with the usual features: authentication, authorization, detecting attacks, handling registration, and a traversal for those that want to check more and see how a complete script looks in this language. In the same folder will be examples for Python, Ruby, or JavaScript. I'm trying to get to the end now. A few words about the event. So we already mentioned we had to cancel the 2020 edition of Kamailio World, supposed to be end of April this year. We are already planning for the next year, and likely to be May, eventually after mid of May, as we have it in mind now. Probably we will announce it somewhere early autumn as an exact date. We want to wait a little bit more to see how things are evolving with the pandemics out there. But yeah, keep an eye on our website and our Twitter channel, and we'll announce it soon. We have also a second event, Kamailio Developers Meeting, where like 15 people, 15 developers, we met for the last 2 years in Düsseldorf, hosted by SIP gate. They offer us a nice meeting room, including breakfast, the drinks during the day, lunch. So we could focus on writing code or improving documentation, as well as discussing about the future development. And of course,
I was just going to say there are a good bunch of people at SIPgate, as you said, and very nice offices to visit as well. And in fact, you've just reminded me just to mention that last week's, well, it's not last week because these are done slightly in a different order, but a recent ClueCon Weekly was with Joran Vinsens from SIPgate, talking about how they went from that amazing culture they have where they all get together for breakfast in the morning, and sometimes they relax with a beer after work, all in the office, how they went from that to working remotely, which was something totally new for them. So that's available in another ClueCon Weekly. Sorry I interrupted there, Daniel. Do carry on.
Yes, they are indeed very nice host there, and we hope to have the next meeting again there, because it's very productive and also helps with interaction between developers and speed ups the plans for the next releases. So we try to make it a tradition. We had it for the last 2 years. We plan it for this year as well. We hope the virus let us do it again. And maybe as a compensation for the Kamailio award, in the planning phase, so you are actually the first to hear outside of the major Kamailio contributor developers at this moment. We plan to have sort of a mini conference, more like a birthday party. So September 3, 2001 was first commit of code for the project. We consider it as a birthday for the project. Even back then it was called SIP Express Router. And eventually a couple of the main contributors, now the main developers, will do some short presentation, and then we'll have like open discussion, maybe like afternoon, entire afternoon. So we allow also North American community to join it directly live. And if it's enough interest, maybe we do it 2 days, but now it's again in the planning phase. Watch our announcements to see what happens, and we hope to be able to do it. If you have more questions, to keep it a bit short, not to make it long here. Here it's my coordinates, the project website, my company website, and I'm on down Twitter, where you can pick me if you have questions.
Yes, well worth following Daniel on Twitter. My Conda there was the Twitter handle, and we'll get you back in big picture, Daniel. Well, thank you very much for going through that. It does seem like there's a lot going on inside the project, and I was very happy to hear about the great level of community participation you're having with people contributing to your code base. And of course, that's not the only way that people contribute in the community, is it? There's testing and documentation and various other things. So really pleased to hear that.
Yes, actually I'm the happiest that we managed to get into a very community oriented project. Sometimes people feel it's a little bit overhead because you have to discuss and get to agreement, but long term I think it's better to have many sources for development, many sources for community contributions.
Yes, I fully agree. Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you for sharing that, Daniel. We're coming to the end of our time together, and it's a great privilege to have you as one of the co-founders of the project on here. But before we totally finish and say goodbye, is there anything else you'd like to pass on from the project at the moment?
So we prepare for a new major release, probably mid-summer, as pandemic keeps us a bit locked to the houses, to the offices. Eventually, not much traveling allows us to bring out the 5.4 major release, maybe in 1.5 months, 2 months, maybe just in time for ClueCon Deconstructed. So
that would be good. That would be an extra thing to mention in your workshop, wouldn't it?
Yep. Otherwise, yeah, we hope to be able to get together in the VoIP world, no matter would be ClueCon, Asipto, Kamailio world for them, because sharing the knowledge is what we do every time via open source, right? And sometimes it's good to shake hands, even maybe we'd not shake hands, but meet face to face, share the experience, have a beer, you know, that's the value of events sometimes.
Yeah, very much so. Well, on that note, thank you very much for joining us, Daniel. It's great to see you. All the best to you and your family and the whole Kamailio community. And we'll see you for ClueCon Deconstructed before too long.
Thank you, David, and also for you, family, and the SignalWire team. Keep good work out there for the SignalWire and for preparing the ClueCon Deconstructed. I'm sure it's a lot of work for that as well. And we'll see each other at least online, if not on different ways before.
Sure enough. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.